Hi, here is a little video where I try to explain why and how you can use the audio recorder function that you find in OneNote. So first of all, for English as a subject, pronunciation and fluency are two important skills to master. Now, how can we practice this? Well, we can practice by talking out loud or reading out loud to ourselves. The audio recorder in OneNote also allows us to record ourselves, and that means that we can go back and listen to our recording, listen to our pronunciation, and listen to how fluently we speak. And by doing so, we might realize that we need to practice more, or we need to look up the pronunciation of certain words. And that's often easier to hear if you're not inside your head, but you're listening to yourself on a recording. Some people are uncomfortable doing this, but that's something that you get over as you do it more often. So for English, it's important to practice fluency and pronunciation. For other subjects, or for all subjects, it's also a very good tool for several reasons. The first reason is something that is called self-explanation. Now, what is self-explanation? Well, it's as easy as it sounds. It's explaining something to yourself. Now, research and studies have shown that this is a very sort of efficient learning strategy. So if you imagine that you've learned something new in geography or science or Norwegian, and you come home from school, and you just record yourselves for 5 minutes explaining to yourself, like, what did I learn today? By doing that, you have started on the process of moving what you've learned from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. And we need to do this fairly quickly after we've learned something new. Otherwise, we'll just forget most of it. And that happens fairly quickly. So it's a good idea to revise during the first 24 hours after you've learned something new. And you can, of course, do this self-explanation just by coming out home and sitting in your room and talking to yourself. But if you record it, you get to point number 2, which I've called repetition. Now, repetition is important, and it's not enough just to repeat it once when you get home. You also need to repeat it several times in the next couple of weeks. So to do that, if you have a recording, you can listen to it, and that way you can repeat. And it's easier maybe than sitting down and reading things that you've written. Some people find it more relaxing to just listen to something that they've recorded. It also gives you a chance to reflect on your progress in a subject, because if you go back and listen to a recording that you made maybe a couple of months ago, you'll realize, oh, I've learned a lot since then, because what I said then, that was really imprecise, and maybe it wasn't accurate at all. So you can see how you progress throughout a year by going back and listening to previous recordings. It also actually saves a lot of time, because as I said, it's extremely important to revise. So you have to, if you want to remember it for a longer period, you have to repeat. And if you can of course do that in writing, but that's more time consuming. We can speak much faster than we can type unless you're super good at touch. At least I can speak much faster than I can actually write. And so it's much quicker, and it doesn't have to be long. You can just come home from school, and then maybe on Tuesdays you have 2 subjects. Spend 5 minutes on each subject. Record a quick sort of explanation of what have I learned in Norwegian and geography this day. So over to how. How do we do this? How do we use this tool? Well, that's also fairly simple. You click. Now you see here that I'm on my Mac, but it doesn't look very different on a computer. So for both Mac and computer users, you choose this function here, insert, and you click on that, and then you find it. The icon is the same for both a Mac and a computer. It's called lydinspilling on a Mac. I think it's just called lyd on a computer, but it's the same. And then when I'm ready to start recording, I click on this icon, and you see here, this is just the first time you do this. It asks you for access to your microphone, and you have to say okay, otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to say okay, and you see immediately that we start recording, and it started. You see that here, and you can see here that it's sort of moving, and you can also see here that it's blinking. So when I'm finished, I just press stop, and then I can play what I've said. Say okay, and you see immediately that we start recording, and it started. You see that here, and you can see here. Yeah, so you get the idea, and it's very simple. And you see here that it's saved here. And if I'm later working with something else, I can just click here. So I'm going to say okay. And then I get back to this page here. I'll turn this off. I get back to this page here, and I can play and pause back 15 seconds, forwards 15 seconds, and so on. And you see here that how long the recording is. Another thing I recommend is that after you've made your recording, you should add a few keywords to explain what the recording is about. Because in OneNote, you can use this icon here to search through your notes. So if you 3 months later, you're like, I can't seem to find that recording that I know that I made. It's easier if you have a few keywords, because it searches through all your notes, but it does not search through your audio files. So if it's geography and you've had about landscapes, for example, you can just say landscapes, mountains, and just a few keywords so that it's easier to locate the recording later on. You can of course also, instead of, you see here, I have using the audio recorded in OneNote as the title of my page. So if you have one page for each recording, you can of course add a few keywords here that will explain what the recording is about. So that is a little on how and why, and I hope that you see that this is a useful tool. I would really like to stress this here, self-explanation, because research has shown that this is a very efficient learning strategy, and I really recommend that you try it out. And you can save yourself some time in the long run, and you'll learn better. It's not always about working more, but about working smarter. And this tool, audio recorder, can help you with that. So good luck on using the audio recorder.